Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be joining everyone here. For me, I've learned over the past 20-something years that we are not an island and no one gets where they get on their own. So I'm so excited to talk with some women I really respect. I'm the announcer at Parks. I also work at Conover Tuttle Pace, an ad agency in Boston. Shona, another CTP alum, so there's always a connection. And you never forget where you came from. So let me introduce our panelists coming up to the stage. If everyone comes up, I'll just introduce once we all get up here. Caton Bredar of FanDuel. Kate Galvin, Sales and Comms Manager at Galvin. Lesley Howard, the CEO of Stone Street. And Sheri Holmes Sterling, the VP of Admin at Gulfstream Park. Again, it's an honor to be up here with so many women that I respect. And I think to start the panel, I just want to ask everyone about the trajectory of your career and how you got where you are now. And we'll just start and go down the line. And then I want this to be an informal conversation where everyone walks away feeling like we're all friends.
Have you got a lot of time? Because
we've all
it's a really long trajectory.
Yeah, they told me we have as much time as we need.
I'd love to say, and first I have to give compliments to the group that put all this together and have kept it going, because I've been involved with so many different women's organizations over the years. And while we've made accomplishments through all of them, we have never been able to sustain it or grow it the way this summit has. So it's a tremendous honor to be here today with all of you and also to see how this has grown. This is kind of what we all envisioned with each of those organizations along the way, so well done. Little known secret for me, working in broadcasting and public speaking for over 40 years, is that I don't like to talk in public. I actually got marked down in high school and college for class participation. And it was something that was an opportunity that presented itself out of college to have a job that would force me to get over my fears or concerns. I had to just get hired to talk about horse racing. And that has become kind of my quest throughout my entire life. In one form or another. I started in publicity. And I really didn't think that I wanted to be in television. It wasn't even on the radar. There were no women very few women, I should say. Charles C. Canny was kind of the icon. And there was one token woman on any broadcast. And that was it. On the racetrack, I was galloping horses. I was working with my dad's horses. And the same was true. And I just didn't necessarily think of talking about horse racing as an occupation, but the opportunities presented themselves over and over again. And that's the thing that I have learned more than anything is don't think about it. If it sounds interesting, go for it. It was just opportunities, right people at right time. Somebody said, do you want to take a shot? Hey, could you do the breakfast show? How about talking about the breakfast show? The first television opportunity I ever got, the president of Arlington Park, Ken Dunn, was looking for someone to do a full-time job. And I was working in New York in publicity at the time, and really, again, did not have any thoughts of television. And he hired me to work in publicity, primarily to do the Breakfast at Arlington show. And I said, well, I only want to move back from New York to my hometown of Chicago if I can have a full-time job. And they said, well, we'll flush it out. So by doing that, I didn't know what the job would be. I didn't know what it would look like, but it ended up being much more public speaking and television work than anything else. He said, we've got a spot on the results show at the time was on local television. And maybe you could do a feature on it. It was hosted by Jerry Galatano, a former jockey, and Phil Georgeff, who was a legendary track announcer. And I was to do a short feature on that show. And he said, you can do that, right? And I said, sure. So you talk about imposter syndrome. I didn't know anything about doing a live interview on television or how long it should be or how to go about it. But you just kind of faked it till you made it. And after the first couple, Ken Dunn came up to me and he said, you've done a lot of this, huh? And I said, oh, yeah, and just kind of went with it. And one thing led to another. When I had an opportunity, just through a mutual acquaintance from New York racing, Sue Finley, who now is with the Thoroughbred Daily News, but at the time had worked in publicity and worked a lot with a television crew when they came in, ABC Sports, as a researcher. They were looking for another researcher, and she recommended me. And that's how I got a foot in the door with ABC Sports and made connections with people, including Charles C. Canny, that would then kind of set me up for the rest of the way. And we didn't have mentors at the time, but if there were such a thing, I would consider both Charles C. Candy and Dave Johnson, two people who I work very closely with, and to this day consider very good friends, mentors, by being the best possible people to work for and work under and assist and learn the ropes of television. And really, one thing just kept leading to another. And it has been an amazing ride. I still, even now, can't believe that I get paid to come to the horse races and talk about them and share the passion for it. And, you know, while it hasn't been easy, or there have definitely been pitfalls along the way, I'm still doing it. When a lot of people would say, maybe we'll do something else, or maybe we'll just relax for a little while. But for me, this is what I like to do to relax.
Well, Caton, you talk about Charles C. being such an icon, and I have to say that you have become on that Mount Rushmore to so many of us as we came up idolizing you, and you have very much held the door open behind you as other women have come behind you, and I know you've mentored many women along the way.
Well, I take that as the highest compliment anybody can pay me whenever they compare me to Charles C. or mention Charles C. at the same time. And I also think that's one of the most important things that I've learned along the way is to take a compliment. So I appreciate it truly.
Now, Kate, you grew up in the sport. Did you always know that you wanted to forge your own path ahead?
No, actually, so I grew up on a family farm, and I don't even think, being in the Saratoga area, there wasn't a huge number of young people or peers that were interested in thoroughbred racing from, say, my high school or from my sports and everything. So I went off to college like any other 18-year-old, went to school, and after college actually worked 1 year in the wine industry, which probably doesn't surprise anyone who knows me. But very interesting year, and in sales, which for me ended up being a really natural fit. Loved my time with Gallo Winery, but found that every weekend I was traveling to horse sales, even, you know, going to all the regional sales, meeting my parents and my family wherever we were consigning. So on one of those trips, I ended up with Anna Seitz, who I think is here, at Keeneland in November, working for her family. And she said, hey, I'm going to Goff's and Tattersall's next week. Do you want to come and work? So, of course, being 23, 24 years old, just hopped on a plane and left my car at JFK. I remember coming back, and it was buried in snow, could hardly find it. But while in England, saw these, you know, now iconic, this brand of Darley Flying Start, a group of 12 young people who were at the sales at Tattersall's, and I just said, I don't know what that is, but I have got to do that. So it definitely was just an aha moment for me. I still remember exactly where I was standing at Tattersall's when I saw the group, and fortunately was selected for the course in the next year. And then again, the whole 2 years, I would have told you I was going to go back to New York. My goal would be to, you know, probably have a sales consignment or work somehow in the New York program. But the Pole of Kentucky, I mean, you guys, anyone who's not from here who's getting to visit it this weekend is incredible. And after the 2 years on the course, I started with what was then Darley, now Godolphin, and I have been there ever since. So it's been a really interesting journey. I think one thing I'll always tell people about the 19 years I've done in some way or fashion the same job. The horse racing industry is never dull. Your horses change every year. Like in the client business, I'm still amazed how many new clients we gain every year and new faces we meet. How many clients we've never actually met in person. So when you do get to meet these people, it just keeps life interesting, and there's lots of highs and lows, and keeps me very interested.
There is never a dull moment in
Never.
horse racing. Now, Lesley, you came to the sport a little bit differently than many people, and you fell in love with it in a different way. Tell us about your story.
I did. So I am from a small town here in Kentucky. 3,000 people know thoroughbred horses where I'm from. Went to the University of Kentucky, and I knew probably when I was 12 years old that I wanted to be an accountant. How exciting. Woohoo, accounting. So I came to the University of Kentucky to major in business, and there was a particular accounting firm here based in Lexington that really focused on agriculture, and that was what my background was on the small farm. We had tobacco and cattle, and I said, you know, this is something I know, this is something that I can get behind. So my senior year of college, I applied for jobs and found a position with Dean Dorton, and I was so excited. So when I started with Dean Dorton, I immediately went into their equine practice. And there were a lot of similarities between the thoroughbred world and cattle and tobacco. So I got to meet these amazing people, all of these different farms, and thought, this is really special. I want to go and work at a place like this one day. And about 6 years into my public accounting career, Jess Jackson of the wine business came into the horse business and said, oh, I want to start a small horse farm. I think I'll buy 120 mares and we'll get started. So then he said, oh, maybe I should have an office. So he started with me at Dean Dorton and quickly decided, oh, I think you should come work with us. I'm like, no, I'm really happy here at Dean Dorton. This is what since I was 12 years old, this is what I was meant to do. He said, no, you should come. And I'll never forget a sports tie-in. It was Super Bowl Sunday. He's like, here's your offer and you're going to start. And so I was like, okay, I'll come now. And that was 21 years ago, guys, 21 years. So I had this amazing mentor in Doug Dean at Dean Dorton who gave me the opportunity to meet with people that I would never have been able to sit around a table and talk to and really learn the business of thoroughbred racing and breeding, and to go from Doug Dean then to Jess Jackson. I just felt very, very lucky to be around such accomplished men. And then Jess Jackson died in 2011, and Barbara's like, okay, we're gonna do this. So starting in 2011, Barbara and I changed the way we managed Stone Street and really have taken it on to a different place and a different level. And she's so amazing to work for and work with, and really builds up female leadership. So my story's a little bit different in that my mentors were male mentors, but I think that gave me the opportunity to really find my strength and courage and words, and take what Barbara and I started in 2011 and develop what we have today. So that's my story.
And Sheri, tell us how you found your way here.
Well, first of all, I prefer not to be on stage. I like being in the background. And I'm not going to tell you how long I've been in the business, because much longer. Let's just go with that. To be succinct, I think I kept trying to run away from racing, quite frankly. I wanted a part-time job like all, kids in high school, and my mother, who was then CFO where we were, and also the secretary to the head of the jockey club, went, got a great job for you in a back room at a racetrack. And I was literally 13, so no labor lawyers around. I went from there. It supported me, through high school, helped pay my education. I had every intention of being an archaeologist. Off I went to the desert. I did, however, along the way, get married, had a child, went, desert, children, probably not good. What do? Go back to work at the racetrack. So the racetrack, I was doing part-time because we didn't race year-round. I also worked at a bank. Kind of hit my glass ceiling at the bank, and the track said, come on back. I went, come on back. And again, not telling you how many years ago that was, but I had worked my way. I will give away my age. I literally used to calculate pools, like daily double exacted quinella, by hand. So gives you a good idea. But yeah, and then I met my late husband, moved to Florida, and I've been at Gulfstream Park for the past 16 years. And it seems like every time they go, oh, somebody left, do you want to do this? I foolishly go, sure, that'd be me.
Saying why not me has also put me in some interesting predicaments over the years too. Now, one of the most wonderful things about this conference is that there are women here that are in all different phases of their careers. We have women just starting out, and then we have the women that we all look up to, the veterans. How have the roadblocks changed for you in different points of your career, and what's different now from when you started? Caton, we'll start with you.
Well, I just want to point out that I was betting on those pools that you were adjusting. So, well, first of all, the number of women has changed dramatically. I mean, you look around the room, and if you think about, for me, when I came into racing, it was not that long for women to be able to even just ride in races. People forget that happened in the 70s, that women were allowed to become jockeys. And you see Jessica nodding, her mom was a pioneer in that group. And, you know, I think it's a wonderful thing that we've come so far, but that we actually have a generation of women, I would imagine most in the room, that don't know a time when it was any different. But because of that, the change for those of us who are around is dramatic, and it's wonderful. You do feel like you're not the oddball. I mean, a good friend of mine said the other day, you're not just a unicorn, you're kind of a freak of nature, Caton. You've been in racing and on television and on sports television, and you're a woman. It doesn't work that way most of the time. But I also think that it doesn't work that way in the world in general. Everything has changed for women. So you have more role models now. You have more people to commiserate with, to spitball ideas off of. None of that really existed, but I will say that I was really fortunate that at every stage of the game there was at least one woman in each area that you could kind of gravitate toward. I talked about Charlesy, Amy Zimmerman. Ronit Larone was a producer I worked with very early on when I moved to network television, who was not only very helpful, but very, very good at her job. She worked on the ABC telecast when I started, and then ended up on Fox, and then ended up helping me get a foot in the door for figure skating, which is something that had I not had the association with Ronit, I never would have had a chance to cover. But what's interesting to me is that when I started, it was very unique to not consider your gender in terms of the work that you're going to do. Now, I don't think that is an issue. I think you can do anything, and you can. I was raised, fortunately, by a father who believed that it shouldn't be an issue, and anything you wanted to do, I was a daddy's girl, but he was a proud dad, and he was going to support me in whatever I did. And I think that's the biggest change now, is that wasn't the exception. That was the exception then. It's not the exception now. I think women realize that they can go for it. If they're interested in it, you can go for it.
Kate, what initial roadblocks did you face as you were starting out?
Can you say?
What initial roadblocks did you face as you were starting out?
Kate, and it's hard to hear. Red flags? Roadblocks. Okay, I'm like, red flags? Not too many.
There are a lot of those.
Thanks, Lesley. There is a little bit of an
But we're really good at ignoring those.
Roadblocks, let's see. I'd say imposter syndrome. I think both genders deal with it, but for sure, I remember and fortunately had some great mentors and managers and colleagues and friends who, probably gave me the pat on the back and come on, just get out there and do it. You can do it kind of motivation I needed. One thing on the heels of what Caton was saying and the question about how has kind of networking changed or relationship building changed, I do think that a lot more of my management and colleagues in the workplace, big clients who I might be trying to form relationships with, I think more and more have spouses who both work. So there is a better understanding for, say, since a lot of people in the horse industry are male, I think that more and more of them are married to women who work and who also have a family, and so they're carrying some of that work-life balance as well, and I think that has probably made kind of the entry into making those relationships a little easier sometimes, or maybe than it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago.
And Lesley, early on in the financial part of the industry, did you find any roadblocks that are different from now?
I think there's more of an awareness of financials at this point. I mean, the Big Beautiful Bill, for example, people talking about the 100% bonus depreciation. I think that new entrants into horse racing and breeding do have an understanding of, oh, there's some tax benefits to this, where 20, 25 years ago, I don't think that there was that awareness.
And Sheri, in the administrative side of the racetrack, what changes have you seen?
More women, which is fantastic, obviously. Because, yeah, you know, in terms of roadblocks, when we started off, our sex was definitely a roadblock, no doubt. Our gender was. It wasn't unusual to be the only woman in places all the time. Now you're not, and it's really quite nice to have, you know, some fellow folks there with you.
It is wonderful to have a group of folks that can speak your language and relate. Caton?
One thing with that, though, too, what's interesting is that it is a wonderful thing to have, and I would never go back to the way it was. For what it's worth, when I was going into television, I talked about the one token woman on every broadcast. So being that token woman was a benefit for me. The more women that come into the workforce now, the more competition there is in general, not just against the men, but the women as well. So the flip side of that a little bit as to how things have changed in terms of roadblocks is that what used to be a benefit for me or give me a little bit of an edge is no longer an edge anymore, especially having it at this stage of the game because of age. Now you're not only competing in general for jobs. I mean, I'm okay where I'm at, so I'm not concerned about it, but for any woman coming into it, they have that much more competition.
Do you think that double standard still exists and that sometimes men are celebrated and welcomed as they continue to age publicly, whereas we are under a little bit different pressure, even in these different times? Do you feel that pressure?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's pressure as far as physical appearance, but it's also pressure as far as mental acuity and the standard you're held to. I find that the older you get, the more people expect more from you as far as always being right, not making mistakes, always being sharp and on your game. I get a lot more criticism now than I ever did at any point in my career. I think that's partly a product of the society we live in, sure. And social media kind of fuels the fire of negativity at times, but I also think age has a lot to do with it.
Now, I like to think that we are all a patchwork of every person we've loved in various ways in our life. What is the greatest lesson that a mentor has taught you that has become a part of you? Lesley, let's start with you.
The greatest lesson a mentor has taught me probably would be not to be the loudest talker in the room. Mm-hmm. Just sit and listen, even if you feel in your heart, oh, I know more than that person, or oh, that's wrong. Just to sit and really listen to people around you, absorb what they're saying, and take that in.
And Sheri, how about you?
Oh, I think by far, be true to myself, be authentic, be credible.
Kate?
Really.
Someone once said to me, horses are the greatest common denominator. So when you're kind of intimidated to, form a relationship, just remember we're all in this for the love of a great game. And you could be talking to somebody who owns 200 horses and you've just got one little, stallion season to try to sell to them. But if you ask them about their weekend racing and they had a good weekend, you usually can start a good conversation.
And Caton, how about you?
That the majority of angst you'll experience in your life is due to people not doing what you want or thinking the way you want them to think. You're never going to change that. So let go of that. Just worry about yourself and the things that you can change or control.
Now, I think it's a responsibility of those of us that are more established in the industry to, again, not only open the door, but hold it open for the women behind us. What do you look for when you're building a relationship with a younger person who's interested in working in the industry? Sheri, let's start with you.
So interestingly, because they're all sitting back there, I believe that you have to have a culture that you're looking for. And I do believe a business should have a culture, but even if it's your own business unit, it should have a culture. And anybody who's spent any time with me, and boring, but I always say, we're herd animals, and if you find your herd, you thrive. And I really do believe that. So I think when I'm building that relationship, I'm looking for somebody who doesn't have to think like me. We don't all have to agree, that would be so boring, but has the same sort of ideals, the same drive, the same passion. And if we'll fit together, we can work together, I will help you out, we'll do the best we can.
Lesley?
For me at Stone Street, it would be someone with a really positive, infectious attitude. I think that there are skills, especially on the administrative side, that we can teach, but I can't teach willingness and positivity and enthusiasm. I think that's something that's inside of us. And when I come across a person who's just really excited about the horses and really excited about racing, but they don't quite have all the technical skills, we can teach you that, but I can't bring that hard work and dedication and enthusiasm. I can't create that inside of someone. So when I see that in a candidate, I'm like, oh, that's special. I like that.
Kate, what do you look for?
I think just great communication, eye contact, a willingness to learn, ask questions. You know, I'm lucky to work around a few young people who I'm so impressed by their communication skills, their ability to advocate for themselves, all while staying on the course and, you know, working for the team.
And Caton?
I would just say an openness to listen and try it on, and if it doesn't work, that's okay. But I would say I've been actually too often, I think, giving of suggestions and information or trying to work with people who sometimes would probably just prefer that I just leave them alone at times. But I feel like that's part of it. The greatest joy is not just in doing the job, but at this stage of the game, getting the opportunity to work with young people. It's been so much fun working with Andy. It's been so much fun working with Gabby before her and watching people build careers and go in different directions and pivot. And I think just sitting beside people and listening and responding are the biggest attributes you can have.
Now, Kate, you talked earlier about imposter syndrome, and I think that's something we all deal with. I remember, gosh, the first at least year I walked into the Parks announcers booth, I didn't believe that I belonged there. And it's easy to get in your head and feel like you're not ready, but you're never going to be ready until you actually do it. No one's actually ready for anything. How do you deal with imposter syndrome? Because I think it's something that affects us regardless of which level of our career we are in. And Caton, let's start with you.
Well, I was so interested in what Lindsay had to say with her podcast, and because the thing that I've been struck by is that imposter syndrome didn't set in until I had been doing what I do for a long time. In the beginning, I didn't think about it at all. I just rolled with it. I was too young to know better, so I didn't have to worry about it. I just wanted to be good at what I did and impress people and get more opportunities and get new jobs and just keep going and going. So it's once you get there that all of a sudden, especially if you have opportunities that are different. I went to work in news, local news, which was completely different from anything I had ever done after working in horse racing television and coverage for years. And that was the worst imposter syndrome I ever suffered for a long time, actually for several months. I think part of it is you just have to buckle down and believe that you can do it and keep going in with an open mind to accept criticism. And that's a big thing for me. Somebody told me a long time ago, take all criticism seriously but never personally. And I think that was so important because if you don't think it's worthwhile, if it doesn't have any value to you, that's fine, then let it go. But seriously consider what somebody's saying. Don't react emotionally to it. Just, is there any truth to it? Is there something you can learn from it? And I had, the news producer said to me after a story that I worked really hard on, it was a live shot and it was kind of out of my area of expertise and I really didn't understand very much about it and you had to get on the spot and cover it. And I rambled and when it was done, the producer came up and I thought maybe I did okay. And then he said, you just put 10 pounds of crap in a 2-pound bag. And I was crushed for about a minute. And then I'm like, okay, what could I have done better? So I went back to my photographer and I talked to them because they knew what they were doing and I didn't, and tried to figure out where I went wrong and how I could do it better. And I think each of those instances where you feel insecure are the opportunities to really learn and grow.
Kate, how do you quiet that voice that we all have in our head?
So I've thought about this a lot. A big part of my job certain times of year is hosting our open houses and giving the spiel about each stallion as he comes out. So I have had stallion shows where I have been the deer in headlights for a second, like, I can't even remember who he's by. You just have to work through this, right? That is like, when we are out of our comfort zone, that's when we feel like an imposter. So for me, I study. And I'm sure, Jessica, your job is very similar. When you know your stuff, you're not an imposter. You just get out there and do your thing. And Kate, and I'm sure it's exactly the same on TV. Once you are sure about the message you're trying to send, then I think it all goes smoothly and it helps my confidence a ton. So that is definitely a little kind of nugget, I would say, in life that has really helped me, and that, all of us, men, women, it doesn't matter. No one knows what they're doing when they first start a job. Like, you have to raise your hand, you have to get out of your comfort zone, and then you have to put in the work. And for me, that has really helped with imposter syndrome.
Lesley, how about you?
I think for me, slowing down and being more mindful about the way I spend my day and my time helps that anxiety to kind of push out of the way. One of the big things I've found is when I wake up in the morning, for the first 30 minutes of my day, not looking at a screen, not first checking my email, not looking to see the news. It quiets me and it keeps me calm, and it allows me to focus on my strengths and to recognize my weaknesses as well, but not in an anxious way. So that would be my advice, is to really begin each day in a calm state, however that works for you. And just continue to focus on your strengths and shut down all that negative talk.
And Sheri, what have you learned?
I've learned what imposter syndrome is. To be perfectly honest, not that it didn't always exist, I think it has, but the term itself is relatively new. Mm-hmm. So over to dinner the last couple of nights, I've asked people, what is it, explain to me what that means to you. Because honestly, I think when I was young and inexperienced and didn't know what I was doing, I was too busy trying to figure out how to get there, right? To really think about whether I belonged there or not. I was like, no, I'm doing this, and how do I do it? So I had no problem going, what do I need to do that well? So I did it. But one thing that I have that's come to mind over our conversations is this more of a female thing than male?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I always, the mentality I tried to take in the booth when I first got in there was to go in every day, even if I did not feel it at all, with the confidence of a white man that just thinks he can.
So we have a phrase that we use, I'm an owl. So sorry, I don't mean to offend anybody. It's old white lady, that's what I am. So
I love that so much.
So, we just say, well, what would the owl do? Because they knew everything, so what would they do?
That's really great. Now, before we open up to some questions, what's the one piece of advice you would give your younger self? Lesley, let's start with you.
Oh, goodness. The one piece of advice I would give my younger self, probably just to enjoy each moment. I think I've spent so much time thinking about imposter syndrome and am I pleasing this person? Am I pleasing that person? And I get so caught up in all of those things that I forget that I'm at a racetrack and watching these beautiful animals compete. And that's what I would go back and tell myself, is don't lose yourself in the moment.
Caton.
This requires a little explanation, but there's a story, you have to Google it. It's the easiest way online just to find out. But I would tell myself what I tell myself now all the time: be like Dolly on a dinosaur. And if you don't know the story, essentially is a woman's young son who loved Dolly Parton, and he loved dinosaurs, and he was very intimidated about something. And that became his motto. I'm going to just ride in there like Dolly on a dinosaur. And so that's kind of what I wish I could tell my younger self to do.
Kate?
There's so many, I don't know. One thing I feel like I always told myself, and maybe it didn't always resonate, but, do your best and leave the rest. This feeling of, you've got to put an end to things at the end of the day, have some boundaries. So I feel like that is one thing. Having boundaries is probably good advice for my younger self. And just, as Lesley said, just enjoying, the industry we're in, taking advantage of some of the amazing people we meet, places we get to travel. Yeah.
And Sheri?
When I thought about this, I sounded like sound bites. I really did. But I honestly believe I would tell my younger self, embrace your uniqueness. Be confident. Go out there. Try things. You fail, you're going to. And that's a good thing. And I don't think we teach women that. Mm-hmm. We're going to fail. Embrace it. Learn from it. Move on to the next thing. Above all, find your passion. Because if you find your passion, you'll find your confidence.
And my advice would be very similar to what Lesley said. It's so easy to get caught up in the doing and the bustle of all of it, but to always take a step back and remember that we get this opportunity to work in the most wonderful sport in the world with the most wonderful people. And no matter how busy it is, always take a second to find the thing that you love about this the most and sit in that, even for a minute, and then go back to the busy. Now, we have a couple of minutes for questions if anyone has any.
Wow, we're good.
I mean, we covered a lot. So.
All right, so in the biggest moments of your careers, what were you guys' 3 big moment rituals?
For me, I treat the biggest race day like a Tuesday at Parks. And I don't mean that in a disparaging way, but I think that for me, the preparation is the same regardless of it's the Pennsylvania Derby or $7,500 non-winners of 2. Going 7 furlongs in the dark in November, and it's the same, and I try to bring the same amount of effort to both, but.
I think the same thing because each big event is a little bit different. So Breeders' Cup is very different from Dubai World Cup, is very different from Kentucky Derby and that weekend, so it's hard to have a ritual or routine. But I will say that, and I wish I had done this when I was younger, but now I do, on big days, try to make sure that I have a morning routine where I get up, even today, and I take about 10 minutes and I meditate, and I just kind of embrace quietness for a little bit to make sure that my head can be in the right place when I go out there. But otherwise, it kind of varies.
I'm going to echo that because now Lesley and Caton have both said it, and I'm not sure about Sheri, but my morning routine has to happen. Nearly every day. But it's waking up super early. It's having that quiet time, that alone time. And then, sometimes it does bleed right into a little bit of work, but that's, a time of day when you kind of can do that deep thinking, deep work that you sometimes don't get the rest of the day.
Well, and I think the discipline of that structure kind of then bleeds into the rest of your day. I know for me, I am very much a creature of habit, and my days start the same every day, regardless of where I am.
Mm-hmm. Our big days, because we are the front-facing part of the business, means we start earlier, and usually I look like I'm going to work out because I'm going to run around the entire property and look at everything before I ever put on that outfit that represents a day.
Mm-hmm. And comfortable shoes. I remember when I was younger, I suffered so much. I'm so glad that comfortable shoes are okay now.
Whoever decided tennies were good, I love you.
Yeah. If we take one lesson, wear comfortable shoes.
Sorry. Has there, this is open to all the panel, but has there ever been kind of in contrast to the imposter syndrome? Has there been a moment where y'all taken a step back and been like, wow, I've made it, where you've experienced that surreal moment, and maybe if so, would anyone like to share?
Oh, definitely. But I say that sort of flippantly, but I don't mean it that way. Every day when I get to work and I think to myself, I have this fabulous office at Gulfstream Park. Nothing is ever boring. Everything is always moving forward. I love it.
There are times when I think after the moment is over, you realize you got a really good interview, or you had just that moment that you got something that, I remember several years ago, there was a situation where an owner had a horse scratch on Derby morning, or actually it was a day before the Derby, but, and getting the interview in the moment didn't feel like a big moment. It actually just felt stressful and really just way after the fact, the interview went viral and it got a lot of attention, and I fortunately had people I was working with that would point out to me that it was, a really good interview and that I was able to get it, that I felt very satisfied with myself and the job I get. And so I never think about making it. I don't know, some of us maybe in this business, I don't know that you ever think you've made it. I think that's kind of the nature of television, is you're sort of always defensive about where you're at and where you go next. But celebrating the triumphs, or those moments that you really feel you've done your job really well, that was one of those moments for sure.
For me, it was this year's Cotillion and Pennsylvania Derby. It was my third Cotillion in Pennsylvania Derby. Gosh, these years have gone by. And this was the first time that I turned the mic off after the Pennsylvania Derby, and I went, oh, that was mine. I was in control of that rather than just kind of trying to live through the big moment.
Mm-hmm. I just have a quick question. Because of my age, I've had multiple opportunities, and I've at some point reached a level where a man had that job that I am then moving into, and I know that you all have had the same. How did you advocate for yourself financially? Because I think that is something we have not talked about, which is out there, and probably every one of you had to do. I know I had to do it multiple times because I wasn't taking this seriously.
I'll jump in on this. So again, it kind of echoes my prior comments, and that is research, preparation, and you've got to put yourself out there. And by that, I mean you have to ask for meetings. Like I've had different times in my career when we've had, more management-driven reviews, and then I have different times in my career where I feel like it's up to me if I want to have a review. And that is your opportunity to ask for more, or whether it's more responsibility, more money, more flexibility. And I think I was fortunate in that I did I was a business major in college, so I had the formal education side of that, of what is expected. And I will tell you, your managers would have no business being upset for you in a formal, organized setting to ask for, more compensation on a regular basis. I promise you, men do. And that's obviously what contributes hugely to the wage gap, as even if for, in small percent each year, a guy's getting a raise and you're not, after 10 or 15 years, it makes a big difference. So even a tiny raise is worth asking for, and you can build on that every year. And I think you do have to drive the bus if your manager is not formally reviewing you. And as a manager, I appreciate when someone says, can I have a review? Or can I get on an annual review schedule? So I think you have to just put yourself out there and be organized. Like, do the research. Now with the internet, you can basically Google and research, your region down to your city, what people are making. And some roles are obviously public too, so you can even see exactly what salaries are.
And I would add to that, sitting in the CEO seat, when people come to my office to talk to me, the ones that I'm more willing to work with are the people who come in confident of their worth. They know what they have to offer. They know the benefits they bring to the Stone Street table, and they know why that we need them. And when they come in and talk to me with that confidence, I'm like, yeah, you're right, we do need you. Yes, you do need that extra money.
Yeah.
So I would add that to
Yeah, for sure. Like, yes, identifying how you're making a difference to the organization.
And I would say that people should realize that they need to take responsibility for not only what they want, but also what they can expect. I mean, you do the research and you go in with an idea of what you need to get to be able to do the job. And maybe it's going to be a little bit less that you get because you have to take the job, but then that's your choice. In terms of negotiating, though, you have to go in with the starting point in your head of what you're looking for. I had an agent for a small period of time. I was really fortunate because I met someone who just said, you know, I admire what you do and I'd love to work with you. And she actually didn't charge me what the standard rate would be with an agent, and she taught me as well kind of how to represent myself in the process. If you are in the occupation of television and you can have somebody else negotiate, it's a wonderful thing because then you get to sit back and not have to be in the trenches. But at the same time, it's really important, even if you have someone else doing it for you, to be involved and vested in that process because it's your life. And it also sets the tone for what's going to happen going forward and what you can expect. I had one person in negotiations say to me, to your point, Stephanie, about respect, this was an ESPN producer, and it was at a real critical time. And I did have an agent, but he insisted on talking to me directly. And he was a very high-up person with a production company, but tapped into ESPN. So it was sort of I was trying to go to Fox Sports, and I wasn't exclusive to anyone. But in that time, most people were exclusive. Now you'll see a lot more fluctuation of on-air talent. And I did my homework and I had everything set down, but I really wasn't prepared for someone who had given me a big break to then say to me, you know, if you take this deal at Fox, it smacks of ingratitude. But for me, that in my mind made up right away. Okay, I'm going to Fox because that's not fair. I don't think he would have said that to a man in negotiations. So you have to be willing to make hard choices and have in your mind a real set idea of what you want and what you can expect.
I would certainly reiterate all of that, and will also say it took me a long time to realize my own financial value and to actually do that research and go in and meet with them and go, I'm worth this, you know?
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a perfect way to wrap this up, and that we all should know our worth and advocate for that. I want to thank these amazing women. It's been an honor to share the stage with all of you. And thank you to Stephanie and the Horse Racing Women's Association for putting on this labor of love that brings us all together. This is always an inspiring event. It's a great thrill to be a part of it. So enjoy the rest of the day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.